Welcome back to the X Podcast. Sitting here with Mr. Moore. How are you?
We are at the intimate table.
At the intimate table that is very shaky.
This is kind of the shaky table.
Yeah. Our friendship is shaky.
Yes, it's on shaky ground right now.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well. You survived the weather?
I did. We had an apocalyptic.
As you call it, the tornadic activity.
I was driving in, and on the side of the road in a ditch was a crumpled up trampoline, which I didn't think we got any wind at all where we were. Like, I did not hear any wind. I pulled all my deck furniture off of the patio, whatever. Nothing. Got a lot of rain, flooding. It was crazy.
It was a weird,
and then cold
ominous
today.
weather
Yeah,
day.
it was strange because it
And then rainbows.
jumped up and it jumped. It's just odd.
You see all the crazy
No.
colors, sky, pics with rainbows going across Columbus, and it was a nutty day.
Really?
Otherwise, very
That's interesting.
apocalyptic, dystopian. Interesting.
Do you know what apocalypse means? Do
What does it mean? Yeah, you've been studying this.
you know what it means, though?
Yeah. Tell me, what does it mean?
Well,
I must have it
I don't
wrong.
want to. I'm going to talk about it on Sunday.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's just it's a misused word.
It's a misused word. Okay.
Well, I don't know if misused. Okay, that's what it originally meant.
Okay.
Is not what it means today to people.
The etymology misleads us to today.
Because it's just, but I don't want to say it's misused because culturally, as words change, like when we think of apocalyptic, we think of end of the world. We think of destruction.
Yep.
We think of catastrophe, calamity. Literally the word.
It's raining right now.
It's raining right now.
Yeah.
Literally, the word apocalypse means vision. It means to reveal, where you get revelation.
That's right.
Right? Revelation is actually,
Yeah.
Actually, it's called apocalypsis. I mean, that's the actual Greek word for the title of the book.
Yeah.
But so it actually
Interesting.
means to like pull back the curtain. It means to open the door, be able to look and finally see and reveal. But it's interesting because of the contents of that book.
Yeah.
I think over time, it has just morphed into we say something is apocalyptic when it's bad.
Yep.
Whereas in first century, if someone heard apocalypse, they wouldn't think bad. They'd think good.
Yep.
Oh, good, we get to know how it works. Oh, good, we finally get to understand and
Yep.
see. And today, that's not the way it is. It's totally flipped. And so now it's just this kind of term. So it's just an interesting, unnecessary piece of information for you.
No, that's. How are you feeling deep diving into all things end times, eschatology?
Overwhelmed.
Because we begin a brand new series for those
we
who don't have
are.
good context.
See, when's this coming out? This is coming out in
Friday.
2 days. So we are starting it off in 4 days, or
Crazy.
2 days from the day this comes.
And you have the blood moon charts.
Yep, we'll have them all out.
You have it all out. John Hagee's flying in.
Johnny.
It's pretty
John
amazing.
Hagee's still alive?
Yes.
Senior? Not junior, but senior?
I believe
yeah,
so.
I think so. I haven't heard any otherwise. but
Jeremy Jenkins, Tim LaHaye, they're all coming.
They're all going to sit on the front row. We're going to.
Mark Kahn, is it Kahn?
What is it?
Jonathan Kahn? Jonathan Kahn.
One of them. I know what you're talking about.
He's coming.
Yeah, we're going to dice up their books
Sweet.
and take a look at them. So
Nice.
it's going to be. We're going to have. I think we'll end up with a couple podcasts on this because
Oh.
I'm going to. We're going to allow people to submit questions.
Yeah.
And so we may take a podcast or two at the end. I'm still trying to figure out how we want to address a lot of the questions. I do think that there could be some fun spinoffs in parallel conversations that we could create here.
Yeah.
That makes sense for that larger conversation for our church community. So
Really good. I know, and we just launched the app, which people are still going crazy over. I know through the app, you're wanting for the first week for people to actually input what month they're born so we can get their astrology sign. So that we can kind of kick off the series by saying...
You're doing your thing again.
Am I doing my thing?
You know where you lie. Well, we need to get your signs of the zodiac so that we can put it into the charts. Yeah. And with the eclipse coming, we can then divide out, do the math, and we can figure out when Jesus is coming back.
I saw somebody's Instagram handle the other day. It said, "I don't know my sign, and I couldn't be happier."
I like that.
I like that a lot. They say in LA, that's the first thing that's asked.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're on a date, they say the first thing that's asked literally is, "Okay, so what's your sign?"
What's the first thing you're asked on a date? Too fresh? Oh.
It's how do you make that much money? And I just like, listen,
Oh, that's interesting that in LA, that's the first question that's
Yeah.
asked. I think most people around here would say, "What do you do?"
yeah.
I think out there they say, "What's your sign?" Probably because
When were you born?
There's no point if our signs aren't compatible, there's no point even having this dinner.
Exactly.
Or lunch or coffee.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
If our energies,
I got to be honest,
you know.
I don't know jack squat about astrology. I just know I'm a Capricorn.
Wait, so you do know? Okay.
That's all I know.
Okay.
Well, you don't know your sign?
Apparently, I'm a Virgo, I guess.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's September, right?
Yeah, September 22nd.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll go with Virgo.
Yeah.
So I have, I don't follow it. That's all I know.
Well, you always said,
yes.
why trust the stars?
Yeah.
We can trust one who made the stars.
Yeah. That sounds like a quote you pulled from someplace else.
Speaking of Revelation, and tying into last week's episode, we had so much good feedback from last week. Probably more than I've heard in a couple months. Honestly, we had a lot of good feedback. Why are you grinning?
What were we talking about last week?
Which
one? I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, the one that came out last week was where we talked about opposing voices.
Oh, yes, opposing voices.
And it was interesting. I listened to a podcast with Rich Wilkerson Jr. and somebody.
Nathan Pinocchio.
No, it wasn't that one.
one?
It was a different one, although that one was great. But it was a different one. And he literally brought up the whole, Jesus writing letters to the 7 churches. And he said something that sounds so simple, but the way he phrased it, I just thought was
No, let me know so I can steal
pretty
it.
profound. Yes. He just said, notice that whenever Jesus was talking to the churches, his first words, usually when you give a self-introduction, you're saying, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. But he interacted with every church differently.
Yeah.
I don't want to say use the word advice, but his exhortations were different.
Yep.
His commendations were different. His tone with all of them was different. And he just distilled that into a thought I thought was really brilliant. He just said, if you meet 7 different Christians, you meet 7 different expressions of part of who Jesus is. And he said that is the power of various expressions of Jesus through different human beings and even denominations and expressions of church, is that 7 we caught 7 different glimpses of Jesus, depending on who he was talking to.
Yeah.
And I just think that kind of goes down back to the point of our understanding of God is so small and so limited, and a lot of times we box it into our own personality type. And the truth is, the way God relates to me, I mean, I don't have kids, but you would probably say this: you don't have favorites, probably. But the way you relate to Lauren is probably so different than the way you relate to Audrey.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're different.
Yeah.
You don't love them. You love them equally, but not
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
And so they probably experience different expressions of who you are.
Yeah.
And so I think even 8 billion people is not enough to contain the full expression of who God is. And even 8 billion denominations. I just thought it was interesting. One last anecdote on last week. Because I'm preparing for this worship lab, so I picked up a little Tozer worship book off the shelf and just flipped open. And I literally flipped open. Because Tozer's very in the middle with the whole Arminian Calvinism thing. But he literally talked about John Wesley as John Wesley was dying. He's 90 years old, could barely speak. And as he was dying, he was trying to sing a hymn. And it was a hymn by a Calvinist brother. and he says, if that doesn't show you the picture of how big God is, here's John Wesley, who spent his whole life writing, arguing Calvinism, as he's dying, singing a hymn by a Calvinist brother. And I just thought it was kind of a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Of us learning from each other. But anyways,
It is.
Last week was a really fascinating conversation. This past weekend, so special, was Easter.
Yep.
We did our first ever Good Friday service.
That was so awesome.
It was so
Rich.
Beautiful. We had 3 Easter experiences, all full, incredible, just an incredible weekend.
Yeah.
Incredible weekend. But there was a little bit of...
Not to be held without controversy.
No, a little bit of, let's just say national...
Yeah. Not our church.
Not our church. But a little bit of national Easter controversy. But I want to segue there through...
Let's not just go straight there.
Yes.
We don't jump in yet. Let's dip our toes in.
Because what I really just want to rally around is the idea and the danger of outrage culture.
Okay.
And
can we say that? Would you say that outrage culture is connected to? It is the predecessor, even though it still exists, to cancel culture.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say they're connected in many ways? Cancel culture is when people
Yes.
actually take the action, or they try to throw their voices into somehow, taking somebody down because of something.
Yeah. Well, actually, can I nuance it this way? I think outrage culture is what people apply to people they've already canceled in their mind.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I hate to use the term.
Or people that they can't cancel.
What's the different term than echo chamber? Let's find a new term.
Yeah.
But for people that have
Your cave conundrums. No, okay, I don't know.
but for any of us,
Your
that
bat caves.
how about the your
Echo
bat caves, your
chambers.
bat
Bat caves. Echo. Bats. Chambers. Your bat cave.
Your algorithmic abyss. For all of us, for all of us, which is
I
all
hate
of us,
I hate that term too.
find ourselves algorithmically challenged by having our minds and hearts tinctured by one constant, incessant narrative that makes your side good and the other side evil. We know that affects the way we.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So no, I'm playing into this because then
Yes.
I want to ask you before we get into the serious stuff.
Okay.
Okay, your Instagram feed. What's in your algorithm right now? Because I have like certain things, or YouTube. What's in your algorithm?
Do you really want to know what's in my Instagram algorithm right now?
Hold on. How about this? You have to pull up either YouTube or Instagram.
Okay.
And scroll through and get where
they're very different.
Okay, so
I have Instagram deleted right now.
Okay, so YouTube. So I'm going to pull up
Okay.
YouTube. Okay. Mine is nothing but apologetics and Corvette videos.
Okay, mine.
This is so bad.
Okay, mine so far is movie trailers because I
yeah.
watch a lot of movie trailers, and I'm really excited about Monkey Man that comes out on Thursday. From the guy from Slumdog
Okay.
Millionaire.
Okay.
The Tonight Show.
Oh, here's
Apologetic debates.
lots of those. I've got
Church messages.
Richard Dawkins versus John Lennox.
Post Malone music video.
Shelby GT350. They're sports cars.
A lot of church messages.
Is time real? I mean, that's a video that would pop up in your feed, right?
Podcast, movie scenes.
Shapiro versus Destiny.
Of
A lot of
course.
arguing ethical / science.
Cooking.
What's that?
Cooking.
Oh, this is boring to people, I'm sure, but
Anyways, but on
it's
Instagram,
just, I was just trying. It made me laugh as I thought about my algorithm right now because on Instagram, my algorithm is nothing but. Okay, I won't say nothing but I get lots and lots of LeBron hate videos. I don't know how they know. I think it's just because every once in a while, there's like a couple guys that they're all obsessed with thinking LeBron's the GOAT. Mm-hmm. And so I would get a video and I would send it to them. And every day I have 2 or 3 new videos that will show up in my feed that are all saying why LeBron isn't the GOAT. And so I just send it to them. I just do to rile them up. I don't even care anymore. So I have a lot of those in my Instagram feed right now. So
you know what's fun? You know my almost entirely what my Instagram algorithm brings up is this. Maybe this shows my age. Advertisements for neck and back tension relief devices.
Really?
So there's like this one that's like there's this one that constantly comes up. It's like a hip hook the way you lay on the ground and it relieves tension. in your
Really?
hip. And there's another one that's like for your neck and back. I don't know. This makes me sound so old. The only thing that keeps popping up are these like devices, these new like
Really?
tools of how
You've
to relieve.
clicked on some of the links on those,
Oh,
and so
yes.
now they just
Because I bought massage guns. I bought like things to put on the wall to like. Oh yeah.
It's amazing how your side of the internet looks very different than my side of the internet.
But but we say that lightly, but that shapes us.
It's so true. Like
It
it's like
shapes us.
I'm getting all kinds of Victor Wembanyama videos.
That's why I love what they say. Erwin Manis does. He literally, like when he's going down and he's on social media with political stuff, he'll click on both sides.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I don't want to ever inadvertently be brainwashed by one side and see one narrative. Anyways, so I think that outrage culture is applied to people that in our minds we want to cancel. Mm-hmm. I also think it's an outcrop of echo chambers.
Yeah, shaped by it
It's
for sure.
shaped by it.
Yeah.
And I think it is also a symptom of how thinly we think and quickly we jump to conclusions. And it doesn't do us well. It doesn't do our mind well, our heart well. And I just think it's we've rallied around this conversation a few times, but I also think as we continue to try to have conversations leading up into election season, that it's just so important, especially when because the thing about outrage is it doesn't stay quiet. It usually finds its way onto social media platforms. It goes out. Yes, the rage goes out. The rage goes out.
Rage out.
And so it just makes us look bad. And as a person of faith, specifically, if you're a follower of Jesus, it makes you look really bad. And if I could even say this, it makes us look really dumb.
And can we go further and say it makes him look really bad?
Yes.
At times.
Yes.
And it does. Yeah.
And so I want to give, I have a specific example from Easter. And this one's a little bit more on the right. And so I want this to be a fair play table. So I want to start with a couple examples on the left. And
equal opportunity offenders.
Equal opportunity offenders. Because at this table, we don't make people or political parties our combat. We make ideas our combat. So we're not combating political parties or people. We're combating ideas. And I think if we can we can depersonalize ideas to where we don't take them so personally and so tribalistically, and we can just put any idea, no matter what political party or cultural avenue they're on the table to just talk about honestly, I think will elevate the way we think. So like on the left, this is a couple years back, but one of the biggest examples I think of that was just such a horrendous jumping to conclusions, ripped out of context, outrage culture to its finest, was the Don't Say Gay bill.
Yep.
Ron DeSantis. I'm not the biggest Ron DeSantis fan, I'll be honest.
That's odd. You told me you were before when we got jumped on.
But
okay.
But I think everybody probably remembers there was a bill, and really the whole point of the bill really just came down to let's not shatter the psyches of young children by
introducing
propaganda, to be honest, which I don't use that term lightly, because I think that term's hijacked a lot, to early premature exposure of things that were not necessary to talk to with kids. And I think it was really just first, like, elementary school age. I mean, it's really young age of we're just not going to talk about these things.
We're not going to confuse them.
Confuse them.
It's dangerous.
And if you've heard us talk about some of these issues of sexuality and gender, like, we really strive hard to be theologically pure and relationally loving, and to find that tension of, okay, where is truth, and how can we also engage and meet people where they're at, what they're going through, speak with a ton of empathy and nuance, while also saying, hey, like, it is important that we stay tethered to reality, and how God's wired us, and how do we navigate through that, and how do we also create a space for people to wrestle no matter what they're going through, all of that. But he had a bill to try to just protect kids against early exposure. Not only was it not something that would affect kids at a later age, and not only was it not anything that was prejudice, it literally didn't even say the words "Don't say gay" anywhere in the bill. But it was immediately turned into this. I mean, the marketing was brilliant. Don't Say Gay bill. The right's crucified. Ron DeSantis crucified, when that's not what he was saying. And I won't usually say something like this, but I agreed with Ron DeSantis. That, like, this is something that we should protect our kids in this. That's example one. More recent example, and I heard Jon Stewart bring this up. I thought it was kind of funny. Is he played this collage of videos recently of news outlets all saying, this image is so disturbing, we won't even show it. The breaking news, there is an image, a scene going on in America that we have pictures of, but we won't even show it to you. And it was like 10 or 11 news stations saying it's so disturbing. And so, Jon Stewart builds it up. He's like, what could it be? We've literally shown pictures from Gaza. We've been showing pictures from Ukraine. We've been showing pictures from all these dehumanizing, tragic, gory. And the image was literally somebody had taken a laminated picture of Joe Biden tied up and put on the back of their truck. And he's like, okay, look. He's like, this is not appropriate. This is not good. This person shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
But the hyperbole
Yeah.
to say that this is worse than
Yeah.
anything we would show you from Gaza, from Israel, from
Yeah.
and so it's just this outrage culture. And I get it, because on one hand, here's the problem with outrage culture. One of the many reasons is usually there is something to be angry about, to an extent. Sometimes.
You just,
The moment
usually,
I,
usually,
the moment,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
the moment I say that, I'm fact checking myself. There is a lot in the world to be concerned about.
Yeah.
There are things worth addressing. I say that because it is worth being concerned that our country has gotten to such a boiling point of polarization and hate and culture war fever that it's normal for a person to take Photoshop some sort of picture of the president of the United States hogtied to the back of the pickup truck. So I say that because that is worth being concerned about, like the fever pitch that our country's gotten to. But to create an outrage culture over it that makes it seem like it's worse than the war in Gaza, that's not healthy. So there's a couple examples on the left. But, and I'm nervous about this next part because people get, I'll be honest, I got on, okay, I'm just going to say it. I got online
Easter Sunday.
And the next few days after, and convinced that our current president must have declared war on Easter, Jesus, God, life, humanity, the cross, the resurrection, everything. I mean, I saw, and this is why I bring this up, this is why I actually think it's worth talking about. I saw leaders I respect posting about it.
If you really respect them, then you should name their names. I'm just kidding. I just want to see if you would say their names. Okay, so, but why don't we at least say some categories? Pastors of large churches.
Yes.
And anybody else that you want to throw in there of?
I mean, pretty much any like far right, or or even just conservative.
Yeah.
Politician, leader,
news channels,
everything.
Yep.
And it
I
was
saw the
Joe
articles.
Biden. And here's the narrative.
Yep.
Here's the narrative. On the holiest day of the year, Easter, Joe Biden has declared it Transgender Visibility Day.
Yeah.
And this is a desecration. And on top of that, he's not allowing certain symbols of Easter on the law when it comes to the Easter egg hunt.
The egg roll.
And I literally saw the
egg roll. Yeah, that happened on Monday.
I literally saw, one particular pastor that I really look up to said, this is not a left versus right thing. This is a good versus evil thing. And blah, 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 blah. And if you're not outraged, and they can say whatever they want to about Donald Trump. And I saw friends of mine that I respect liking these posts. And so I'm like, well, okay.
Wait, and you don't agree?
I'm just like, maybe I am missing it here. Because I started, and sure enough, there's been some fact check articles come out. And so I'm just going to lay out the facts of it. Shut up because I've talked too much. And then
no, you just keep talking. That's just fun.
Okay, so here are the facts. Again, narrative. Biden's desecrated Easter. He doesn't want it to be Easter. He wants to declare it National Transgender Visibility Day. And he has outlawed there to be symbols of Christianity.
Any kind of overtly religious symbols.
Yes. So
the Easter egg roll.
Okay. So here are the actual facts.
Yeah.
The National Transgender Visibility Day has been around since 2009. It's been a proclamation in the White House since 2021. So it's not a new thing, and it's not something Biden.
But we will say it's been under his. It's been presidential proclamation since he's been in office.
Yes. It's been around since 2009.
Yeah.
He's the one that proclaimed it.
Yeah.
So that's.
He's the one that did he pick the day, or was it always? Because in the last several years.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Since the moment it happened, it's been on March 31st. If you're familiar at all with Easter, you know that Easter falls on different dates every year. It's really frustrating as a church to plan because you never know. Usually schools, I don't know why they do this. A lot of times it's around spring break, which is really frustrating. And so a lot of times families are out of town, all these kind of things. Anyways, so
it's April 20th next year, by the way.
April 20th. So March 31st.
Yeah.
So Biden didn't create this day, and it's not, and it's been around as a proclamation in the White House for the last 3 years. Number one. Number two, he didn't pick the date. Number three, the rules of what applies to overtly religious symbols for Easter and the Easter egg hunt, he didn't create either. Those have been around for decades, and nothing new was applied this time. So he didn't create the day, he didn't create the date, and he didn't create any new policy around Easter egg. The day just happened to have fallen on the same day as Easter. Also, by the way, which Biden issued tweets, what do you call them now, X, whatever, for both. For both Easter, which, by the way, this is, I'm just saying, this is another interesting nuance. While former President Trump posted a tweet that was literally just a rant of epic proportion and hate. Can I read you what President Biden actually tweeted on Easter? He tweeted, "Jill and I send our warmest wishes to Christians around the world celebrating the power of hope and the promise of Christ's resurrection this Easter Sunday." So he didn't post a rant. He actually posted something about the resurrection of Christ. He, as a presidential office, tweeted something about both Easter and about the day that this happened to fall on, which was the National Transgender Visibility Day, which, by the way, and maybe this is just controversial as well, I do think the far left has lost their mind. I do think it's really dangerous how right now there does seem to be an attempt to erase gender, to erase the nuclear family. I do think instead of just teaching children kindness and empathy, there's this weird overreaction on the left to trying to glamorize that. Having said that, I'm just going to say, I don't think it's the most un-Christ-like thing to say on a day and every day, we're going to choose to see whoever there is that's a minority as human beings who are valued. That's just a hot take. But anyways, I read that and I'm like, oh my gosh. So on false assumptions and false information, because here's the other funny thing. Not only was March 31st this year the day that Easter fell on, and the day that the Transgender Day fell on, it was also the day that the United Farmers thing fell on, and he tweeted about that too. Just no one cared.
United Farmers.
It was like a United Farmers. There were 3 things that fell on March 31st this year: the Transgender Day, Easter, and that. And so I'm like. And here's my thing too. Even if you knew all that, which is obvious, no one knew all that, because the narrative that was pushed was Joe Biden made up this day. He decided to do it on Easter, and he didn't care about Jesus. He wanted me to make about transgenders. Which, if you tweeted that, is not just slander but false, and just slander because it's wrong. But on top of that, here's my, I'm gonna shut up for a minute. You go.
No, I'm good. What, on top of that, what are you?
To me,
this is fun. This is Russ rant day. So I just like to hear you rant about.
I think the other thing that's a giveaway for us is when our outrage is selective. So let's say you did know that he didn't create this day. Let's say you did know that he didn't choose the date. Let's say you did. Let's say you knew all that. I don't think anybody that posted knew all that, but let's say they did. If you still disagree with him putting anything out on Easter about that, that's fine. That's up to you to have that. But if you're engaged in politics to the extent that you'd post about that, but you've not been posting about anything our former president, I mean, of all the trials, of all the charges, of all the things of corruption, of all of the Bible that he just got behind the Constitution. I mean, to me, it's good sense to not spend your time posting, slandering any politician. But if you have not been outraged on one side, and you find a way to excuse all of the corruption, all of the vulgarity, all of the, we could go down the list, but on one side, but then on the other side, just swallow, bait, hook, and switch one narrative without researching the validity of it and post. it frustrates me and it concerns me.
Are you outraged about it? You're outraged about the outrage?
I'm not outraged, but it's just frustrating and it's concerning. And I'm like, man, if this is a portent of things to come in our election season, it's just not good. And when are we going to think better? When are we going to research before posting and liking?
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
When are we going to? I'm going to be. Let me get.
It doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell.
I think outrage sells, though.
Yeah. Am I going to get canceled for what I just said? Am I going to make some people mad?
Well, or you've already been canceled and people are just outraged by what you've said.
And this isn't me building a case for President Biden.
Sounds like it.
I've said before on this podcast, dear God, let's tap out
but we
of
can't.
the Trump
Unfortunately,
Biden match,
we can't.
and let's get someone with character and integrity that can have the courage to move towards the middle and have nuanced views. Let's get somebody new in.
You know, as bad as Russia has it, where they have a dictator who produces the outcome that he desires so that he can continue to rule and reign supreme over their country. I feel like we have a dictator, and it's called the Republican and Democratic National Parties. And they give us who they want to give us. And we don't really have any final say other than we might get to have a final say in who gets to be the person in the office at the end of the day. But I feel like they're in charge.
Yeah, it's true.
We have our own dictators. It just, they just can't get along. And
remember, it's like the old adage: we're getting the leaders we deserve.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there you go. I think push
back on me.
No, I think that.
Did you see it? What were your thoughts when you saw it?
Well, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, "What? Like, why would this be on necessarily Easter?" But I didn't jump to conclusions or post. I think part of it is this. I think outrage is a byproduct of our very partisan culture that we're in. That we are just like the polarized culture. I think as polarizations increase, outrages increase, and I think they're hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also become the only way we communicate anymore.
Yes. We're an all caps culture.
Yeah. Everything is. How do I make the most noise? How do I get one up on that side or party with the next thing that candidate did? And what's the new headline? I think outrage sells. I think media, there were all kinds of conservative media outlets that were all over this because it's a narrative and you're going to spin whatever narrative to keep your viewers and do all of that stuff that happens. And so I think the real... I think that exists. It's there. It exists. I think the question for any of us is, how am I going to play along or am I not going to play along? Am I going to, I think if anything, we'd probably want this conversation because some people may feel outraged over it.
Yeah.
And still, because it doesn't matter. It fell on Easter. You should have had the foresight to recognize that, hey, this day is falling on this one, and you could have recognized it the day before and said, hey, we know this.
I'm not saying it's a good look.
Yeah, it's not a good look, and it might be, obviously, it seems to be coincidence. I don't know that.
The last time this happened was 2013.
Yeah, that it fell on the
same day.
Okay. And what's funny is I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
I feel like because transgender wasn't even a conversation 10 years ago.
Yes.
Not like it is today.
This is and I get it. This is the first time most people are finding out that this was even a day.
Yeah. I had no idea it was a day. And even in 2013, I wonder. So again, let's play a little devil's advocate. I wonder if you go back to 2013. So in 2013, I believe that was Obama. President Obama. Right? Donald Trump was in 16?
16, yeah.
To 20, right? Joe Biden was 20 to, so I think it was President Obama.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd be curious, even, this is how much culture has moved. Did President Obama tweet something on Easter about Transgender Day? I'd be super curious. Or did they put out whatever? I don't even know. I know Twitter was around there. I don't know how popular, but social media was really on the rise big time then. So, my point I'm getting at is like, I don't know that transgenderism was very much in the conversation like it is in the spotlight today. And so again, I don't know if things have shifted culturally that it was like, oh, this is falling on this day. We need to say something about it. Whereas maybe previous presidents wouldn't have said something about it, even though the day existed.
Sure.
Right. So it may have not been much of a conflict as it was in the past.
Yeah.
And, I guess I wonder, I don't know if he would have changed anything, but from a look, I wonder if President Biden and or his team, I wonder if kind of not realizing the optics of it, just, hey, this is on this day, because I understand. I think if you remove the partisan politics from this, okay, or even how you feel about transgenderism, okay, if you remove that just for a moment, let's remove religious affiliation, remove all that. At the heart of what is being said with Transgender Visibility Day can be very kind. It's we recognize people that maybe struggle in their gender, and what gender dysphoria is a real thing, right? And so there's a level.
See, a lot of
of
people don't even believe that.
That it's real.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe that. I mean, I don't want to go back to our conversation 2 years ago, but some people think that anybody that struggles with their identity and because there's so much suicidal ideation and suicidality that comes out of it, and there has been a lot of cultural push and momentum. I think some people, because of that, make the mistake to think it's all culture. Right. This is all just peer pressure, cultural brainwashing.
I think there's enough people that have given their, I think, authentic experience that gender dysphoria exists.
Yes.
I do think this is going to be a total conjecture on my part, so I could be wrong. You can fact check this. I don't have any. I'm not standing on this. I think it's a very small percentage of the people that are actually fully engaged in transgender, ideology or maybe fluidity or non-binary. I think there are some people that, and again, my heart breaks that gender dysphoria, when you hear them talk about it, they talk about literally like almost can't leave their house. Like they feel physically sick. I mean, and I do believe that people, there can be such a, we don't understand how much the physiology and the psychology really interlap. That how much, just in the same, that'd be like saying that somebody who has a bad form of depression, that it's just all in your mind and get over it, right? There are people who deal with depression that affects them physically because it is such a powerful thing through the brain. And so I think there are some. I don't think it's indicative of the entire movement and the people that maybe just struggle in identity without gender dysphoria, or that struggle because they have not felt like they fit, in a lot of different places. So, again, that's a little bit of conjecture on my part. But I think that when we see this like partisan culture, I think if anything, the conversation that, because I think there's people that they think that he should have handled it different, recognizing the times. Yeah. That President Biden and his crew should have operated a little bit different, understand the times, because the times do change and culturally things do change. Yes. And there's a massive sensitivity to everything right now. And we're in such a polarized environment that you do something like that, you're going to inflame people. And maybe they didn't care. I don't know. I can't speak to motive. That's the problem. The problem is outrage culture often assumes motive. Yes. To me, that's the real.
It assumes the worst.
Yeah, it assumes the worst. It does. And I think that's what's awful. And I think my take on this, because I could look at a headline and go, oh, that seems like odd timing for this. Yeah. But my first reaction is that I'm going to go out and post. I'm going to go out and reshare. I'm going to go out and like and all these things that people share. And so I think that's one of the things that I've learned over the last few years is that I want to be much better at being slow to speak. What's interesting is that Scripture talks about people are quick to anger. But it says we should instead be slow to speak.
Fools are quick to anger.
Fools are quick to anger. It seems like that the moment anything happens, that there is an immediate response that if you want to, something happens immediately, you're going to post, remember that scripture verse. Yeah. Because you can look really foolish. Yeah. And I think some people just don't care. Politically, any opportunity to jump on and say how awful of a person they are or how terrible that side is, people are going to take it.
Yep.
So it won't matter. And if you get outraged because we're talking about this, then you were going to be outraged by anything. Like this is not a political leaning to one side or the other. You've mentioned like how it plays out on both sides.
Both sides.
I just think we have to be better as humans. And if you're a follower of Jesus, use Scripture. Be slow to speak. Why? Because what James says that our wrath does not bring about God's righteousness.
Yeah.
And so that's the sad reality, is that whenever we do this, and especially if you're a leader, if you're an influencer, if you're a pastoral voice, if you're a whatever, and you're out there leading the charge, you might just be leading people to buy into false motive assumptions and all kinds of other things and outrage.
And you just feed into the wrong
You're feeding
war.
into, yeah.
It's not.
And so I think the wise thing to do is to number one, if you're bothered by something, why don't you go research it?
Yeah.
There's an idea. And research it not by looking at your feed, as
Yes.
we've talked about. Don't just go, wow, I got all these videos and people are just telling, oh my gosh, because that's what the algorithm feeds your anger and outrage.
Yep.
Because it's the same thing over and over. I mean, I am absolutely 100% convinced that I could send you 35 videos why LeBron is not the GOAT.
Yeah, when you
Because that's all that's in my feed. And why Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
and they're actually telling the truth in that one scenario, because Michael Jordan is. But
Yeah. But it's just like, we have to understand
Yeah.
that we are insulated in our back caves or our algorithmic abysses.
and this is where, and I don't mean this in an ageist way, this is where older people are more in jeopardy. Like statistics have shown, they are more endangered by the algorithms. Because
Okay, hold on. Flesh that out for me.
there is right now, in the digital native age, there is a deeper understanding. People are still trapped by it. But there's a deeper understanding from younger generations how algorithms work.
Okay, that's what you're saying. Because I could, I think, make an argument that both the older generation and the younger generation could be equally just as at risk, because you're saying the older generation may not understand the algorithm and just think what I'm seeing is what everybody's seeing.
Yes. No, I see what
and
you're
then the
saying.
younger generation, I'm saying, is exposed
True.
to the algorithm way more.
Yes.
And I think could easily fall prey to the fact that even though they may think it's out there,
Yes.
they may think, I don't get that.
Well, true. And I mean, another example, and again, I don't mean this in an ageist way, but studies have shown this, that an older generation is more susceptible to misinformation.
Yeah.
Something shared on Facebook that just is some crazy whatever,
Sure.
or have you even seen this? I mean, and this would be funny if it wasn't sad, but I've seen people, the satire, the Onion. It's like the satire news agency that is obviously being or
Babylon Bee.
or Babylon Bee in Christian
It's all
circles.
satire.
And
I've seen
satire. I've seen people like
Did you know?
there was like an Onion, or there's a Babylon Bee one of Stephen Furtick has like a 90-foot slide that goes into baptism thing,
Oh,
of which he
yeah.
blah blah blah. And I've seen people share that. I am outraged by what has happened in the Church of the Living God these days, and it's just. You just gotta be so careful. And so, I mean, maybe a good rule of thumb is when you see or hear a story that outrages you, just Google actual story of blank.
Yeah.
And read the other sides.
Yeah.
At least understand both sides.
Yeah.
You may not agree with it.
And you may still feel like you need to say something about it.
Yeah.
But be informed.
Be informed.
Before you do it, so that you're doing it. And again,
And say it in love.
yeah, like,
If you feel like you really gotta say something.
yeah. I think we all know that it's like partisan politics leads with outrage. And so I think almost I want to be like at least perceptive to realize that when I'm seeing headlines of outrage, like your radar should go off and go, oh, hold on.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
whenever something is out, like, and here's another one, whenever only certain, this is more, you have to be aware of this, when only certain outlets, news outlets, when only certain ones are running headlines, the other ones don't.
Yeah.
You know, it's a giveaway. It doesn't mean that something didn't happen. It doesn't mean something that might not be bothersome or offensive or political that was this. But whenever someone leads with that and it's a headline, then at least pause and go, I want to look up the facts and try to understand the facts. And just don't join. I think what we don't need from our corner of the world is maybe we we don't need to join into
the outrage.
Like I don't want to be the kind of person that's joining into all the outrage.
Yeah, I want to be a part of larger stories. I want to be a part of somebody who's thinking of beautiful ideas and how to create the future. Like I want to be a part of why would I want my soul sucked into that kind of mud?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like
I think things are shifting a little bit, and let me just say this too, because I think it's kind of connected a little bit. Things are shifting a little bit in social media. I think from 2020 and the impact of all the events from the full year and how it affected organizations and churches. I think there's a little bit of a shift. One thing I found fascinating, you follow Brady Shearer, right? He does all the social media stuff. He was interviewing, I liked this perspective. He was interviewing social media director at Elevation Church.
Oh,
did you see that one? And so
this is another example.
Well, it is potentially if we're doing it. But one of the things that I don't know if we're talking about the same one, but one of the things that I love that they came out is like their policy is that whenever something bad happens, they're not putting out a hashtag pray for post. That has almost become like, if you don't put out a hashtag pray for city, pray for people group, pray for nation, pray for whatever, then you don't care. Yep. And there's been this since 2020. There's been this whole, silence is complicit. To, that if you don't say anything, and it even that went to like for-profit businesses and stuff. If you're not outraged by this, then I'm not shopping with you. All this crazy stuff. And I love that post because Elevation said, we don't want to just. We feel like that it's just now become your first social media response. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Hashtag pray for whatever natural disaster just happened in that area. Pray for Haiti because it's going on, the violence in there. Pray for whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're like, we instead put out a post where we share our prayer, and we invite people into actually praying instead of it being a post.
Yes, and it's not a post to make a point.
Yeah,
it's how are we actually going to make a difference. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's a great point. But connected to that, you may not have seen this. I think out of that same interview, the person that runs Elevation's social media networks also mentioned some of their basic guidelines in promoting events. And one of the things she mentioned that became really controversial was there are certain things in Scripture, talking about like the blood of Jesus, certain things.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one too.
That they don't use.
Yes, it's about the language you use on invites.
On invites. And, there's people can debate all that, all they want to. Based on that.
That was controversial.
Oh, let me tell you something. Do you know how many people attend my old church?
Your algorithm's messed up, bro.
No,
sorry,
listen.
go ahead.
Do you know how many people attend my old church in Greenville, South Carolina? The Church of God church I was a part of for a long time.
Okay.
That were posting. They were resharing. I'm so glad you brought this up. An outrage article of everybody beware. This guy is dangerous. And it was a picture of Stephen Furtick, and it says he refuses to talk about the blood of Jesus and other things that, quote unquote, might offend people. So I researched it, and I commented, and I said,
I wanted to bring the post up so I could find this.
So I literally, I commented, which I never do. And I literally I said, guys, I never comment on these kind of posts. But this is why it's really important to not follow self-appointed watchdogs. And to actually look at the content.
Yes.
What he is saying, if anybody actually takes the time to listen to any of his messages, you know that he is unapologetic about everything in the gospel. He is unapologetic about preaching the cross, preaching the blood of Jesus, preaching everything.
And he's kind of old school when he preaches. Like he will preach.
He will, straight preach.
Like I use different.
What he does do, from what they're saying, or what his team does, is they're intentional in understanding that when they're trying to reach people, not everybody understands insider Christian language like we do. Yeah. If you're not, to us, we're like, how could you not talk about the blood of Jesus? Well, if you're inviting somebody that you just met who's not raised a Christian and all they hear is you talking about the blood of someone that they don't know, they might just assume you're a cannibal.
Yeah.
So again, we don't go that far. We still talk about the cross and the blood in all our social media posts. So you can debate whether or not you agree with them or not, but there is a huge difference on their intentionality in not using certain insider Christian concepts that they don't have time to unpack in an invite post versus what they shy away from in their actual messages inside a church.
Yeah.
And,
I totally agree.
But that's a perfect example. It's a perfect example.
Here's one of the comments on that post.
Yeah.
Was, except Oh, wait. Here's one of the comments. Except they refuse to use Calvary, resurrection, crucifixion, and the blood of Jesus, ... which makes a church a country club.
I'm like, and you know what? to that self-appointed critic, I would say if that...
You want his name?
No.
Okay.
I would say if they refuse to talk about the cross and the blood of Jesus in their preaching inside the church, then you're right.
Yeah.
It is just a country club.
But he does. Like,
He
I
does.
know this. Like, it is absurd. Can we
Outrage
can we
culture.
can we can we take that same concept, do you mind, and can we do another spin-off podcast on this to talk about that?
Let's do it.
We'll do another one. We'll do another one. It just leads to something that I've been kind of feeling for a while about the so-called critics.
Fired up.
Yeah,
We're outraged.
We're outraged. I want to have an episode where we can be outraged.
Let's be
outraged. So we're going to have another one follow up. We're going to do another one. Yeah. So I think I want to also point out that I have also seen this on the other side as well. I gave you an example of one that I thought was ridiculous. Should I mention that one?
I don't remember what was it.
The one I texted you about when you mentioned you wanted to do this. Okay. So anyways, I'm not going to name this person, but there's this probably sound offensive, but it's true. A D-list celebrity who interviews people, has got quite a following, just simply from the style of the way they interview.
I like her.
I do too. I'm not saying I don't like her. I thought this post that she shared was ridiculous. Last week, there's and again, I don't know where it is because it's gone now. I think it was on there, but it was like, I think shared through a story. But it was like a sharing of somebody's, so from the accident in Baltimore, the bridge that was hit, and I think 6 people died. 4 or 6 people died.
6 people.
6 people
6
died.
people were missing. They presumed
I
dead.
think, yeah. And I believe all of them were Hispanic. Mm-hmm. And part of it was they were working on the bridge late at night, filling potholes. It's something, a job that's tough to do and at night. And, so what's interesting is there was a tragic accident, as far as I know. I mean, have you heard any more that this is like terrorists and that this, I mean, because all the conspiracies were already immediately going.
Gosh.
I mean, we could go ask Jesse and he probably would tell you. But so.
No, it's one of several major bridges around the country that does not have the current standards
Yeah.
for bridges came after this bridge was completed.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things that would help it sustain.
There's several of them, right? Golden Gate Bridge is one of them.
Yes,
There's the
yes.
older bridges.
So you have, I mean this was a container ship.
Yeah, it was big.
Massive.
Big. And so again, I don't know if I'm sure all the conspiracies are already spinning because I've already heard
lost
some
propulsion.
day one that, but I mean, there's conspiracies of that.
Oh
This
my
was
gosh.
again. I don't go down conspiracy tracks, but anyways, this idea this is a tragic accident, takes out a bridge, people died, awful. Everybody agrees, awful accident, should never have happened. But then this celebrity is sharing a post again. It's like this whole idea of outreach culture, where somebody's written a post all about, the people who died were Hispanic, immigrants. Again, this post went very political. See, they're doing jobs that Americans don't want to do. They're too lazy to do. They're doing the hard jobs. They're doing this. I guess on the end it says, say their names, and then list their names out. Again, which is a common, I want to say, method or use that people have done in instances of racial violence and injustice where people have been killed unjustly, almost every situation that you see, oftentimes because of race. It is at least purported that it's because of racial acts, that have happened. And so in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, are you literally taking something that is an accident, at least it seems, that was not a targeted racial attack, that was just a really, really unfortunate, awful situation, and some people died who were working there, and you've spun a political narrative that was A, about immigration, and B, was almost like it was this was pointed at someone. When you're yelling in all caps, say their names, you're yelling at somebody in outrage. And I thought it was awful because I felt like it detracted from all of those other moments of trying to bring awareness to where there have been racial injustices and evils that have been intentional attacks where people have literally targeted or gone out and done stuff to people because of the color of their skin. Like this is that is a method that people use to say, remember this person's name, Breonna Taylor, remember this person's name, you know, the names of the people. And I thought that's like a slap in the, to me, this is an injustice to that. Like you are like, and I thought, and then again, I maybe shouldn't make this connection, but then the person who posted it, I'm like, what? I didn't see anything else by this person, whatever. And it just feels like it's almost like, man, if I'm going to be cool and I'm going to fit into whatever lane I'm in, and politically and social, then I gotta jump in and share my outrage. I'll at least share the post. You know what I mean? It's like, and I just like, this is ridiculous. What we've gone. We're not having conversations. No. This is just a bunch of noise.
And I try to be careful because I don't know her heart.
I don't know her motivation.
I agree,
but I may have a real connection to it.
But I agree. The collapse of the bridge is tragic. There is conversation to be had around what immigrants have to endure and go through, and the kind of jobs they work in our country. But to take this accident, and to turn it into what feels like, to be honest, a gimmicky virtue signaling thirst trap.
Yeah, it came across to me as ick. That's all I can say. Like, I just want to say, and I like this person. I follow her. I think her stuff's funny. But it turned me off. Yeah, it was just ick. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't. Yeah, so I don't know. The whole outrage thing. I mean, I have something to be outraged about, so we'll do that in another episode. Okay. But I don't know. I want to be better than that. In general, us. As humans.
I like what one of the people we look up to, what he always says. He says, if you want to be angry, just be angry at the right things. Be angry at poverty. Yeah. You know, be angry at injustice. Be angry at people that don't have clean water. Get angry not at people, not at political parties, and not at petty things, and not at contrived narratives from your echo chamber.
That didn't begin with a P.
I'm sorry. I wasn't even trying. You say that I even accidentally...
You accidentally alliterate. You don't realize you accidentally alliterate.
I accidentally alliterate always.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyways.
You're absurd. And how much you accidentally alliterate always. Absolutely.
Listen.
Absurd.
Apologies.
And?
Anyways, as always...
I think that was a string of like 10 A words together right there. That was beautiful.
Awesome.
Anyways, so I think we've had a conversation about it. I think it's interesting. I don't know if you have anything else left to say. I just think we're trying to make people aware of this because I think that is something that's beneficial. So if you watch this, you listen to it. Part of what we want in these conversations is to make us aware. So because I think otherwise we'll fall into it. We can be sucked into the trap, the vortex of the social media world and outrage culture and all this. And almost or you almost go like, yeah, I should be mad too. I better post too. It's like, wait, just hold on a minute. Like, I'd rather have an intelligent conversation about it than just to post something in outrage and then it not be backed up factually. And then I look bad and I made someone else look bad when I probably didn't need to.
Yep.
But in the year of politics, does anybody care? I don't know. You and I care.
Well,
You care? I care.
Yeah.
I'm sure several other listening and watching do care. So that's why we have these conversations. Yep. So,
as always. All right. It's been a fun conversation. Assess.
And enough A words.
Okay. Send us an email. Let us know what your thoughts. Let us know what you're outraged about. Let us know if I outraged you.
Yeah. Were you annoyed politically by this conversation? I think we'll have I want to throw this out there for anybody who does kind of watch or listen regularly. which I appreciate that if you do. I mean, we have these conversations. We have fun having these conversations. No one else does because it's good. I mean, I think it's one way that you grow in your thinking and you grow in your mental capacity and as a human is to think things out, to talk things out.
Yep.
I think it helps you gain perspective. Yeah. So I have fun for these conversations if no one else watches or listens. But if you do, I think the question I would have is, or just I guess I would ask, is that we'll probably have several more between now and October or November, just trying to help us navigate the really choppy political waters of a presidential election year.
Yeah.
And that's what we're facing.
Yes.
And we have more, like, it is probably going to be one of the craziest presidential elections that I can remember in my entire life. I mean, you've got the two candidates have been set, and, you know, one of them has a whole lot of legal battles going on and lawsuits and putting up bonds. And so the assets aren't taken. I mean, all stuff's going on. And it's going to make a very tumultuous year. Yeah. And so what we want to be is like, look, we know in our audience is a variety of voters on different sides. Yeah. And we kind of, I appreciate that. I like that.
Yeah,
I don't want
that.
us all to be the same. I think we get better by being challenged and thinking differently. But what I do hope is where we can come together is how we act toward one another, how we treat one another, how we talk about ideas over people, and not that they're better, but I mean, instead of talking about people, individuals. And so I think that's what we'll probably lean into things like this throughout the rest of this year, just to help remind us.
Yeah, and you know it's fun. Like
we're in a political year. Like let's not.
And I love this. Your best friend. I love. What was it? About a month ago, we in passing talked about isolationism. Yeah. As a nation. And one of our listeners, a friend of mine, but from our faith community, wrote me in and said, you know, you're totally wrong on that. Talking about like his view over the years is that America should not get involved. And they said, you know, you're wrong on that. We need to get together so I can instruct you, you know, just being, you know, sassy. And so, but the cool thing is I love him. We went and got lunch. Yeah. And it was really funny. We had some pleasantries because we have you know, a good rapport with each other. And then he's like, all right, let's get started. And we just took an hour and a half and just went back and forth. But it was great. Like we left and like, you know, we've been sending each other articles, but like dialogue, civil dialogue is the answer. Outrage behind screens is not the answer. Yeah. But civil dialogue where you listen to each other, learn from each other, disagree agreeably.
Did it give you a different perspective? Did it make you think, soften a little bit on your stance on some?
There are things I learned during it, and there are assumptions I had that he challenged that actually did make me think, wait a second, I've always assumed that. I need to go research that a little bit more.
That's good.
And
I think that's the best thing that can come out of conversations like that, because if we can't be challenged by other people with different views and then maybe not take even when they're, because we have to understand that other people that come with a different view might have some credibility to that view.
Yes.
And if they do, I want to listen to credible views.
Yes. And this person does.
Yeah.
He's got a couple decades on me. He's been really involved in the military, got a lot of military friends, has done a lot of traveling, has family members that have been involved in some of these conflicts. Yeah. And so there's a lot of like depth and experience and knowledge he's bringing to this. Yeah. So I didn't walk away. My mind wasn't changed when I walked away on the fact that there are still moments to our particular topic. There's still moments that America, unfortunately, in the broken world we live in, should get involved. But he definitely challenged my mindset on.
Did you guys? I assume a huge portion of the conversation probably had to be Russia, Israel, all that good stuff. And so, because there's definitely a new, after it's kind of worn off narrative that's come politically, that there's a lot of people that think we should not be supporting Ukraine anymore. Whereas I felt like early there was widespread, but unified support even across Congress and other things. Now it feels more divided.
But this is another example of fact checking. This is where he might listen to this and be like, "Oh, you're still wrong on this." But
Yeah.
he brought up something, and this is where it's good because it causes you to research.
Sure.
He brought up something about Vladimir Zelensky and how, and this is, I guess, one of the reasons the people on the right think he's corrupt is, and I told him, I said, look, I'm not naive enough to not think there's not corruption on some level in every country.
Yeah.
I said, this country is a new country that came out of the most corrupt country we know of, is Russia. We would be naive to think there's not a level of corruption there. But it is a democratic nation, and so one of the things that we debated about, we're really off topic now, one of the things we debated about is he said, well, how can, they're not a democracy. How could you call them a democracy? Literally, Vladimir Zelensky has outlawed there to be any re-elections, and he has banned 11 different political parties from opposing him. So how could you say that? We, even during the Civil War, had elections. Well, then I start researching it, and fact-checking it, and I come to find out, okay, America's posture to hold elections in wartime is extremely rare and not even understood by the rest of the world. People in Ukraine were actually confused as to why the rest of the world even had an issue with that. It is in the law and democracy of Ukraine not to have elections during wartime. And the vast majority, when they've done polls, the vast majority of Ukrainians favor Zelensky. Not only do they not want there to be elections, they think that would be ridiculous. Not just ridiculous, it would be dangerous. Yeah. Literally, anytime there's a public gathering, Russia bombs the citizens. Sure. But so Ukrainians don't want there to be elections right now, and most of them support Zelensky. And the 11 parties that he opposed are blatantly, publicly pro-Russian. The same thing happened with Germany when they banned parties that had ties to the Nazis. But it just goes to show, but it helped me to dig deep, and we haven't talked since I sent him the article. Sure. But the point is, kind of going back to we quoted the proverb last week. When one party gives their argument, it seems convincing until the cross-examination happens. Yeah. And so we just have to be more committed to truth than our cultural side. Yeah. And if we are, we will force ourselves to do cross-examination. Instead of hearing our news anchors say something that just outrages us against Trump or Biden, we'll say, okay, what's the full story? And I think that's when we start thinking deeper and loving better and just doing better.
Yeah. I just don't have a lot of hope for us ever getting to this place as a nation of like, hey, we're gonna rally around truth. This is never gonna happen. There's so much misinformation, disinformation. It just doesn't.
Yeah. No headline. No headline would ever sell. No one would ever click on a headline that says, "Here's some ways that that Biden and Trump both want to make the world better."
and they agree.
And they agree.
No, I think I don't have a whole lot of hope that we will, like, it's this, idealistic almost. But I do have a lot of hope that we, at least in our community, our context, can be better humans, that we can love better, that we can be kinder. To me, that's kind of what I hope for. Yeah. I don't see us. It's hard. It's like I don't know what's the best, there's so many different terms. Once the whatever's out of the box, once the whatever's out of the bottle, whenever, you can't, it's almost like we can't put it back in. Yeah. And that's kind of where we are politically today. So, yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, it's been a fascinating conversation. Okay. Hopefully it's helped some people or been entertaining at the very least or informative. I don't know. Anyways, go out there and be outraged and just, if you hear something, assume it's true and just post the crap out of it. Okay. Wise things will happen. All right. Until next time, thank you for tuning in and being a part of these conversations. We'll see you next week. Hey guys, it's Russ. Thanks so much for listening. We really believe if we can get around tables instead of behind screens, if we can talk to each other instead of at each other, we can make the world better. To help us do that, here are a few things you can do to help. First, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. This helps more than you know. Also, if you have been impacted by the community out of which this podcast comes, that's X-Church. Maybe you're local or you've been touched by the messages and impact across the country, even the world. I want to encourage you to support this work.
A powerful life principle is to invest in the people and places that invest in you. And so I want to invite you to do that right now by going to thex.church/give. You can give a one-time small gift, a sacrificial gift, or even become a recurring partner. Together, let's keep elevating the conversation, thinking higher, loving deeper, and making the world better. Cheers.